Good evening. Good evening. I'm gonna wait for a couple of people to come in, and I'm gonna check my sound. We're gonna get started. I got a lot to say tonight. Let's see. Good evening. Good evening. This is your girl Saran. We're gonna talk about some money. All right. So my sound is working good. So, good evening. Who remembers that awesome song by Erica Badu? I'm not going to sing it because I want you to stay friends with me. But it's called Bag Lady. Bag Lady, you're going to hurt your back dragging all them bags like that. Listen, a lot of times, we don't really plan for things. We don't plan enough. We think we planned enough, but we didn't plan enough. So let's talk real quick. I'm going to tell you a little story. And this is the reason I kind of went with this title, because back in the day, it's almost 10 years when I was in grad school. Hey, Sherelle, thanks for joining. When I was in grad school, one of my professors came up with this theory and talked about it, and you can Google it now. It's called catastrophizing, right? So in the story, she says, every time something goes wrong in my life, I tend to catastrophize, and I end up a bag lady in New York. And so, we were all like curious, George grad school students. We're like, what does that mean? And we're like, and she's like, she uses the simplest example. You know what? Like taking a test in school. Well, if I don't take this test, or if I fail this test, then I'm not going to pass this class. And if I don't pass this class, I'm not going to get a job. And if I don't get a job, then I'm not going to have any money. If I don't have any money, I'm not going to have anywhere to live. And then if I don't have anywhere to live, I'm just inevitably going to end up being a bag lady in New York, right? And that's kind of how catastrophizing goes. If we really think about it, and we can all probably come up with a scenario in our life when we just go to the worst case scenario immediately. We kind of skip all the steps and we've made the worst of the situation, right? And I noticed that in talking to many clients and talking to many women about their finances, we're kind of in a place where we've catastrophized these things to an extent where we've made up in our minds, I'm going to just probably end up being a bag lady in New York because I just do not have enough money saved. Well, and here's the thing. Tonight, we're going to talk about a couple of things, quick things you can do right away, to consider, some things you can consider really taking a look at, because it's up to us to plan for our retirements. Oh, by the way, if you didn't know, and this is your first time hearing it, congratulations. You're in charge of your own retirement. That's the thing. So before I get into the steps and get into the points, welcome back. I'm Saran. Today, we're going to talk about how to plan for retirement, ladies. So before we get going, if you're on YouTube, hit like and subscribe. If you're on Facebook, hit like, comment in the chat. Let me know you're here. If you're watching live, if you're watching a replay, make your comments and hit #replay. So let's get into it, because I'm a to the point kind of girl. It's Monday night. The sun's still out. I might be able to catch the last bit of the sun before it goes down. So I got some notes tonight because I really want to tackle some things. First things first, how much money do you think you even need to retire? Hi, Relevant TV. How much money do you even think you need to retire? Like, what's a guesstimate? And most of us are like, I don't know. I run into people who say, I want to retire in 5 years, and they got $100,000 saved, which $100,000 sounds nice, but it's may not be enough for retirement. I run into people who, have $500,000 or $600,000 saved, and they're like, hey, I'm ready for retirement. They're close, but no cigar necessarily, right? And so here's the thing. Here's a really rough formula. Now, mind you, again, disclaimer, we're just having a conversation. I'm not telling you to go out and do this as exact financial advice, just giving you some ideas and some things to think about, right? So because it's tricky to calculate your individual retirement needs. So that's why I'm saying this is a guesstimate, because I don't know your particular situation, because it's a bunch of y'all watching this live and it's just me. So I'm not looking at your numbers, but some things to consider. What do you think your life expectancy is, right? And that's a gamble in and of itself. The average life expectancy right now of an African-American woman in the United States is between 77 and 78 years old. And that's based on usafacts.gov. So, .org, whatever the website is. So, but you can check that out. So if you're planning on retiring at 60, then you probably need about 18 years of income for retirement. If you're planning on retiring a little bit later, if you're planning on retiring 5 years later, you need, about 13 years. Just thinking about it. And we're not taking into consideration Social Security. We know that's a thing. It's kind of like we need to just hope it's still there when it's our time type of thing. Let's not bank on it, if you will. But I mean, it could totally be there, right? But how long do you think you're going to live? And that's a rough guesstimate. But oh, by the way, the statistics also say we are typically going to outlive our men. So ladies, if you're married, I'm so excited for you and I love it. And I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but statistically, we may outlive them. And we hang out with our friends and do all the great things that the Golden Girls did on the show that we thought were really old, and they weren't old back then. They were super young, considering they were close to their age now, right? But think about it. Think about how much it is. How much money do you need to live right now? How much money are you living off annually? You can take your gross income or you can take your net income. But it's probably better to take your gross, because guess what? You may still be paying taxes. And even though the pundits say, some of the financial people say, oh, when you get to retirement, you'll be in a lower tax bracket. Well, guess what else will happen? You'll have less things to write off because you may not be donating to as many causes financially because you're giving your time versus your money. Your kids are grown, so you won't be raising kids. Those kids are gone. You may or may not still be paying for your house, so you may be able to write off the interest on your house, and hopefully, hope to God, you're not still paying student loans or anything like that where you're getting a tax deduction for that. But if you are, just one of those things. But a lot of people are retiring with still student loans and still mortgage debt. So keep that in mind too. But those are some things to really start looking at. Like, if I'm 45 or if I'm 40 and I want to retire at 40, at 62 or 65, I have 25 years left to try to come up with a savings and investment strategy that's going to get me well over whatever I'm making this year. So let's say you make $100,000 a year. Because one, if you're not making it, we're going to speak it into existence. Two, it's just easy for me to do the math live, right? So if you're making $100,000 a year and you expect that you're going to retire and guesstimate that you're going to live about 18 to 20 years post-retirement, then you're going to want to be considering having $1.8 million to $2 million in insurance. Why? Because 100,000 times 10 is $1 million. 100,000 times 20 is 2 million. That gives you a good estimate. And you're probably thinking, where in the heck am I going to get $2 million to save or to invest for retirement? Well, you got to come up with it, right? To some extent. Now, there's some things that are going to be gap fillers. And that's why I said we think about the Social Security Act, because you want to make sure your strategy is solid, right? And to just kind of put a little pin in it. And that's why one of the things that me and my other financial, services friends, that when we talk on some of the other things that we do, we talk to parents and grandparents about what's your strategy to help your children and your grandchildren retire, because the best way to get your money to grow is to have that money invested and saved over a longer period of time. And that's what the strategies are that a lot of people are employing to make sure that not only they're good, but they're putting things in place for the children, right? Because a man plans not just for tomorrow, they plan for generations. So that's a tricky formula, right? And so I'm just giving you high level, definitely not detailed. You can go and Google mini calculators on how to determine how you want to retire, right? Now, so like for me, I estimate much longer, because if I decide to retire at 60, I'm estimating living till 90, 95-ish. Why? Because the women in my family live that long. So if I don't, that's just money saved, and it'll pass on to, the generations or the foundations and things that I've named. But if I do live that long, I don't want to be broke. I don't want to be out in these streets retired and broke. I want to be able to get the call from a girlfriend and say, hey, come on, we going to Vegas. And I just jump in the car because I'm still able-bodied and able to do that. Or I want to hang out and do all the social things and all those things when I get to that point. Those are the things that really, really matter, right? So let's start with a couple of tips. I wrote a bunch of tips and I got my notes because I wanted to make sure I shared them, right? The first things first. If you're not making enough money to plan for retirement, if your money's not meeting the end of the month, you got to find a way to make more money. That's just hands down Sorry to be the bearer of the bad news or the good news, but the reality is this. If we're not making enough money right now to do what it is we need to do, then we need to make more money. The only way to get more money is to find another way to make more money. To create another conduit, be it a business, to get a promotion, to find a nice side hustle or something, even if it's not, owning your own business, but it really is something that's generating income. Some people do part-time jobs. You just name it, right? Some people decide to sell their stuff on Etsy or some of the re-up websites where you can sell the things, the consignment and things like that. But really just consider what are the other ways you can bring in income and do that, right? And then the next thing is reduce that debt. If you're able to reduce the debt that we have now, that's more money saved for the future. The most money we pay is on our interest on our debt, not the debt itself. So try to find a way to reduce that debt. Now, if you want to meet with me, we can talk about ways to do that. But the other thing is, if you haven't started saving for retirement, now I don't care how old you are. If you're 20, 25, 35, 40, 50, 60, I don't care what age you are. If you have not started saving for retirement, it's not necessarily too late. Now, the older you get, it may be some time lost there, right? So I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But the younger you are, the better chances you have for preparing it. Set a goal. I talked to a lady a couple of weeks ago. She said, listen, I set a goal. I wanted to be a millionaire by the time I was 40, and I went after it. And she, and or working with her and her finances, she's there, and so that's the thing. Set the goal so that you can get after it. But what are you going to do for retirement now? Even if it's a small amount, even if you can't get to the 10, 20, 30% to put towards your retirement, right? You have to start somewhere. If you're lucky enough to work somewhere that has a retirement plan where they give you what they call free money or matching money, definitely get it. I don't care if it's 1%, 3%, 10%. I don't care if it's $2. Get the free matching money so that you can have that go towards your retirement, right? Definitely do that. One of the other things, and you hear me talk about this in different venues, is get a budget. Get a budget, sis. If you want me to send you one, drop me an email, saranbaker@outlook.com. I'll send you a free budget. No questions asked. You got to have a budget because the thing is it's not meant to be restrictive to you. What the budget is going to do is the budget is going to tell you where your money's coming from and where your money's going. I can't tell you how many times we don't realize that we don't know where our money is going. We're getting paid. We're, got all the we got automatic payments coming out. We got streaming services coming out, the Roku, the Netflix, the this one and that one, they're all coming out. And then the next thing you're looking around like, ooh, I don't get paid again for a couple of days. I don't know what else might come in before then, right? Well, you don't want to be that. You want to have a budget. You want to kind of know. You want to put some things on your calendar so you can expect things and you can anticipate them. So when you look in your checking account where you pay your bills, you're not looking to say, I got an extra $500 in here. No, not remembering that you had some other expenses coming out 2 days from now, and now you've used that extra $500, right? So use the budget and stick to the budget. It's not meant to punish you because when you have a budget, you may even find money that is going somewhere that you didn't want it to go, that you want to redirect somewhere else. I once saw a post someone made and they said something like, you could travel, but you like to eat breakfast and lunch out every day. Well, because guess what? If we decided to do a few small things differently, we could have a little extra money to do some of those other things that we want to do. I know y'all hear my coworkers in the background. They just like to fight. And that's Lola and Paul, my doggies, if you haven't figured it out. They're always here. But stick to that budget and have a purpose for restreaming it. Because sometimes when we update our budget and we change it and we reduce things, it feels restrictive when we don't have something we're going after. So if the purpose of saving is like, look, I'm saving this money because I want to build my emergency fund, or I want to build my travel fund, or I want to, build up for an emergency, or I want to make sure I have things set aside for the future. So it doesn't seem so far away and so distant, right? And I'm going to put a pin in this because then go back a little bit to the retirement plan. And once you start the retirement plan, try not to borrow from it. I'm just saying. Sometimes, a lot of them give you the option to borrow. Try not to borrow from it. I'm not speaking to you from a place of having not done it in my entire life. And that's why I can say don't borrow from it, because then what happens? Now you've created another bill that's going to need to automatically be paid, and it's going to reduce your ability to do something else while you may have needed to do something else. If it's not a true emergency, and an emergency is not a travel trip. Emergency is not fun. Emergency is something like, I need a new air conditioner and this is the only place I can get it from, and it's 102 degrees outside. I'm talking real emergency, ladies. So, and be sure to, and so let me go back to my other points. Be sure to invest in any free money that you get. So like I said, the free money, I know y'all like free money. I want to know more about the free money. Saran, talk to me, girl. Free money is money you didn't have to work to earn. Free money is, 3%, of the matching money at your retirement, at your job. Free money is, what if you have a loved one pass and they leave you money? Free money, things that just come to you. Free money could be winning the lottery. It just depends, right? But when you get it, or if you get a lump sum of money, have a plan. I talk to people and say, what if you won the lottery for $500,000? What would you do? Most people's first answer is, I want to pay off all my debt. And I'm like, well, how much debt do you have? And it's like $50,000. So what are you going to do with the other $450,000? And that's why it's important to learn about money, because what happens is we'll blow the rest of the money because we don't know how to invest it and make it grow. We know how to spend it and pay off debt. So getting you to think a little bit outside of the box, right? And the big thing with retirement is there's 3 phases of it that we really, really have to think about. There is the accumulation phase, which most of us are usually you're in the accumulation time frame for the longest period, right? And accumulation and preservation. Right now, with the changes in the market and all the ups and the downs and the different things, we're really all trying to, those who have the retirement plans, you're trying to figure out how to preserve it, how to protect it from the market volatility and allow it to continue to grow, right? But those are the 2 things we hear people talk about most of the time. But we never really hear about talking about, how is it going to get distributed to me? Am I going to have to pay tax on it when it's distributed to me? Am I going to get it distributed to me tax free? Okay, well, if it's going to come to me through the time frame when I'm going to be taxed, well, how in the world am I going to know what my tax bracket is going to be in the future, right? Questions we have to think about. Nowadays I ask clients all the time, do you think taxes are going to be higher or lower in the future? And a lot of people say they think they're going to be higher. And so I always then ask the question, does it make sense to save your money tax deferred if you think taxes are going to be higher in the future? And they often look at me like, no, it doesn't make sense if I think taxes are going to be higher to then save the money to be taxed in the future. And that made good sense back in the day, because if you go and Google the historical tax rates of the United States, you'll go and see that some of the highest average tax rates were in the 60 and 70 percentile for those higher earners in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. You can go and Google the tax. You don't even have to, I don't even have to show it to you. You can pull that up yourself and look and see how high the tax rates are. And that's why when the 401ks and things like that came about around that time, everyone expected taxes to be low because they were so high then. Right now, our taxes are pretty low, 25% for most people, going up into the 30s and 40s. But the thing is that they've been much higher. So we have to start thinking about balancing out how we're saving our money for the future, because we want to have some buckets that are going to come to us tax-free in some tax-free ways, even if you have a bunch of money in your tax deferred buckets, right? And you want to have those money's diversified to a certain extent. You want to have some things in some secure funds. You want to have some things at moderate. You want to have some things at high risk, just to give your portfolio some balance and give it a chance to go up, and some things to grow where your higher risk stuff is quicker and shorter, and you're going to take profit on that quickly and get it over to where it's more secure. But getting those things in place, right? It's important to do that, because when you start to go forward, you really want to think about it. And then I mentioned it earlier, make some more money. If you're making extra income, what's your plan with this extra income? is a part of that plan to make sure that some of it goes towards your future. And that's important, because if you do not have a plan for that extra money other than paying more bills and working yourself to death, then what'll happen is you'll spend the money and you'll inevitably need more money. And now you live off a higher amount of money and you're going to have to continue the cycle, if you will. So that's really the big thing. Now, some non-traditional ways I'm going to just throw out there. They're cool, but they're not for everyone. They might be for you, sis, but they might not be. So some cool things to think about. If you're in a place where you have extra space in your home, you may want to consider renting it out. If you have a basement or something, you may want to consider the cool Airbnb options, where if you are allowed to do that in your home, where there's no access to you, to consider that. Make a few extra bucks towards your retirement, right? This one is easily said, but not always easily done. Let's stop buying stuff we don't need. Let's just talk about it. Let's talk about Amazon Prime Day tomorrow, because I'm hyped about it and I don't need nothing. I don't need nothing from Amazon. My next post is going to be, Saran, you don't need anything from Amazon. But it's Amazon Prime Day. I got to need something. There's got to be something in my cart that I need. Well, the reality is we all have to cut back a little bit on the click buy, because it's so fast. It's so much easier than getting in our car, driving to the mall, walking around looking for something to buy. Now you just scroll on your phone passively on your bed, in the bathroom, in the kitchen, all kinds of places, in the car at the light when you're not supposed to, and just clicking and buying. But it's Amazon Prime Day tomorrow. And I want you to remember that Saran told you don't need anything from Amazon tomorrow. I hope you're still my friend tomorrow and Wednesday, because you don't need anything. But stop buying stuff you don't need, right? Declutter your house. And I know that's kind of weird, but sometimes when we take the time to declutter our house one room at a time or one area at a time, we might find things that we thought we needed that we already had. Go figure. I thought I needed some peroxide, but I cleaned underneath my 2 bathroom counters. I found a brand new bottle still wrapped in plastic, because I ordered it from Amazon last year, and unexpired. Just a silly example, but sometimes we think we need stuff, but we don't. We might already have it, but we stuffed it away in those cute little organizing bins underneath a cute skirt that makes it look pretty, so nobody knows it's clutter. But we got to figure out how to kind of get those things out, right? And we talked a little bit about this. Invest in solid retirement funds and diversify. I think the diversification is probably the biggest piece, is really looking at things that will benefit you. And I'll go into detail on some options that you can use. One of the things I like to use is called the 7702 account, which is really, it's a cash value life insurance policy. And I'll be very transparent about it, but it builds up your cash in a secure way with guaranteed rates. And if structured properly, because they're all not the same, it can grow your money in a savings vehicle, because it's not an investment. It is a way to have your money sit in the savings and have a small interest rate, have a guaranteed interest rate, not as small as the bank at 0.25% for sure. But, so that you can have your money that's not that money that's dormant, just sitting in a CD or sitting in a regular savings account getting 0.25%. If you do it with the cash value policy, which are the 7702 account, again, it's an account that's structured the same way. It's not a burial policy that has cash value. So let's be clear, totally different. But what it does is it's protected from the market. When you want to access it, it comes out tax favored. And what happens is, if you lock in it, because if the contract says you get 5%, that's how much you get. If the contract says you get 8%, that's how much you get. If the contract says 4%, that's how much you get on your money. But if your bank says 0.25, you're going to get 0.25 for the year, and that's it. So those are some ways to secure it. But then you can look at some other things. You can sell some of that stuff on, again, going back to some of the non-traditional ways, you could cut back. This is not my favorite thing to do, because I think they smell weird, but if it's your thing, and some people love it, it's super cool. I see people go and trick this stuff out, but try to shop at the thrift store and consignment stores. If you're a fashionista and you're really good at it, I suck at it. If it's not on a little mannequin when I walk in and already put together, I'm kind of at a loss. I'm just weird like that. And I know there are other ladies like that are out there. So I know I'm not alone, but I can mix and match it a little bit. But if I got to find it and it looks like grandpa's old, button down checker shirt, I'm not going to be able to fancy it up. It's just not going to work for me. But I know it does for a lot of you ladies. And this one is, kind of obvious, but live below your means. If we can figure out a way, and let's just say an ideal world, let's say if you made $100 a year, I'm just using easy numbers, right? And if you figured out a way to live off of 40% of that $100, that's $60 or 60% of your money that you could use for savings, for investment, for business opportunity, for future growth, for different things. I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm saying it's doable. I know I hear a lot of ladies and a lot of couples now are doing things where when they come together versus starting out doing, if they make, say 100,000 a piece, they're not coming in and creating a lifestyle off of $200,000. They're coming in and creating a lifestyle off of $100,000 so that they can get ahead of the game. And they're saying, all right, strategically for 5 years, we're going to save and invest this 100,000 for the next 5 years so that we can be set for life. Just an idea, just a thought. And if you're not there, there's ways to kind of cut back to do that, right? And then if you can, some people, when they get ready to retire, they downsize their lives. Some people, will upsize their lives. Some people will go in tiny house. I'm definitely letting out a tiny house girl, but some people do. I like to watch the show because I'm trying to figure out how all the people are squeezing in that little tiny behind space. But think about, are you going to downsize when you retire? Are you going to keep your big house, or your townhouse or whatever space you have? Start thinking about, how that's going to be for you. And then this one's cool, right? Get you a really good purse. Because the episode's bag lady, I had to say something about purses and bags. Get you a really cool purse, a nice purse that will last, or a nice bag that will last. I will not use the word invest in a good bag, because if it is not a financial vehicle, it is not an investment, in my opinion. But get you a nice bag that will last for some good time, that you always have a good bag to carry. And then the rest of them, you're not spending so much money on them, maybe the small cutesy ones, but you have a nice bag that you're not worried, oh, I have my very nice whatever, my Chanel, my Louis Vuitton, or Teflon. That's my big, I'm showing y'all I got a nice bag type of thing. But, not breaking the bank on a regular basis on them. Now, if that's your thing, if you're a purse collector, then the story is a little different for you. But for most of us, if we can find a way to conserve, a little bit, and think about, where we want to be, what kind of, retired person do we want to be, then we can get there, right? And last but not least, I'm going to tell you another little story before we go out, right? And those are just some quick tips for you today. And, I'll be back again on Mondays to talk about more stuff. But I had a friend, and she passed away during the pandemic, unfortunately, not due to COVID, but just due to, other things, right? But she was 94 when she passed away. And she was my really good friend. But she was not like any regular 94-year-old. And I promise you, I aspire to be this amazing at 94, right? And she was actually very active in my sorority. I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And she was a member of like 3,000 other things too, right? But she was very active. She retired at 50, age 50. She retired. She lived till she was 94, which means she was retired for 44 years, right? Do the math. And she didn't ask nobody for nothing. She had all her own funds. She went where she wanted to go. She did what she wanted to do. And when I say did what she wanted to do, she was physically able to travel to all kinds of places, Dubai, Mexico, in her 90s. Las Vegas, she went any and everywhere. If there was an event, a social event, she was at the social event in the cutest little outfits you could find. She still went to homecoming at her college. We went to the same college, Virginia State University. And she still went to homecoming and had a blast and did all these things in her 90s. And so when you think about retirement, do you want to be able to be the fun retired person that can go anywhere, do anything, because you've taken care of your health, you've taken care of your wealth or your money, and you've gotten to the point where you're not worried about, you're not catastrophizing, oh my God, I'm going to be a bag lady in New York if all these things don't go well. But the thing is to really get yourself to a place where you're thinking about what you're going to do and not just automatically ending it in catastrophe or stressing out and just giving up on it because you catastrophized the whole thing and figure that this just is not going to work. It's never going to work. So think about, ways you can do it. Call me, jump into my inbox. You can book an appointment at saran10k.com. We can talk about your situation. Absolutely no obligation. But the thing is we're here to help. And so talking to a financial professional will be the key to really, as someone in the financial services industry, to get you on the right track and to get you into some vehicles and to get you really thinking outside of what what you've seen. You may have come from a family where we've seen folks retire and all they had was Social Security, and it was tougher for them when they retired. And decide who you want to be. Just like when you came out of high school and maybe went to college, you decided who you wanted to be by going to college and what you wanted to major in and what kind of job you wanted. Decide what kind of retired person you want to be now and at 40 to get the plan, get the ball going. But anyway, it's your girl Saran. I'm out. I try not to be too long. I was kind of long today. I had a lot of points to talk about. But I'll be back again next week. And hopefully, if you have any questions, you can jump in my inbox. Don't forget to go to YouTube and hit like and subscribe. I'll see you later. Bye.